So first off, I'd like to say thank you so much on behalf of myself and the Athenaeum for attending and for taking part in this interview so we can learn more about you and kind of have like a human library, essentially, of history of the people of Nantucket. It's nice.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course.
I feel very honored.
No, of course. And the first thing I want to talk about is like, could we talk a little bit about your upbringing and how you kind of made your way here?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I came here as a 16-year-old runaway, per se. And I started school here. I emancipated myself at that age.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went to school here. I graduated in class of '05. Mm-hmm. And then I started working immediately at Steamship. Well, during my senior year, I ended up having a baby.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Which is now my 18-year-old who's going off to college in September.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's insane. That's gotta be so fun.
You know what? I'm very proud.
That's awesome.
At the time, life was hectic and maybe not my best choices, but I look at it now and I'm like, oh, look what I've accomplished, all this, after all that. Yeah, so she is going off to college, so I'm a little bit sad about that. Not a little bit, I am sad about it.
Yeah.
And I started working at Steamship immediately after high school.
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for about 14 and a half years. While I was working there, I decided, you know what, I want to go back to school. So I went to Cape Cod Community College, got my associates in information of technology, and I applied for a town job in the middle of all that. And I now work for the Plus department, which I greatly enjoy. Mm-hmm. And now I am working towards my bachelor's in a Bachelor of Arts for History and Public Administration.
Nice. What was it like kind of being able to raise a kid from pretty much when they're born to 18 on Nantucket? It's an interesting dynamic. It
is a very interesting dynamic. It kind of takes a village to raise a child on an island. Especially, I didn't have any family, so I always depended on friends and just friends to watch her while I had to go to work. And then finally she was able to start school. That was an ease.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Was it, and you started, because I think you graduated and the following Monday you started Steamship Authority,
I did,
right?
Exactly. I graduated on a Saturday.
Yep.
I think it was like the first week of June, and I literally started Steamship that Monday.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about a turnaround.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And how long did you work for Steamship Authority?
14 and a half years.
How was your time there?
It was good.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed it. I am a people person.
Yeah.
So at first it was hard because it was hard for me to learn not to take things personally.
Yeah.
Especially when you're the front face. Like they come to you with their issues and they expect you to make it better.
Yeah.
But unfortunately you cannot because boats are sold out or I don't know, weather happens.
You're like the front line.
Yeah, that's the word, front line.
Yeah, you're like the first person. Any issue that happens, it's on you.
Oh my God, yes. They would come up and then it's very natural for someone to become defensive.
Yeah.
Especially when they're screaming at you.
Yeah.
But then I will say they do, Steamship did offer, we would call it charm school, customer service classes, and that helps a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know, I'm sure they still do, but I feel like that helped me a lot. Like how to diffuse an issue. You never want to tell someone to calm down. It's just going to make things worse.
It's like the worst. I feel like that's so bad. I have a terrible habit of that as well. It's like it's like the worst thing you can probably say.
Oh yeah, totally. You wanna make them know that you're listening to them, and you understand, and you're trying to resonate with them. Like, okay, I get it, but I feel you treat them with kindness.
Yeah.
And that usually diffuses the issue.
You also, I've heard you had like a bit of a pack of groupies for the Steamship Authority.
I do have a groupie. I've been out of Steamship for about 3.5 years.
Yep.
And I still get people saying, oh, I wish you were down there. Why don't you come back? You know what? I would come back if once I'm done with what I'm doing and I feel it's time. I wouldn't mind to go back.
Oh, that's awesome. You read the article on, I want to say it was in Nantucket magazine, talking about how you were the only Spanish-speaking teller there, right?
Yes, at the
When you
time
said
I
the time,
was, and
yeah.
then throughout the years, there's been a few, and there's another girl down there that speaks Spanish, and people go to her, I'm sure, all the time.
Yeah, but people would come to you for just a variety of different things.
Oh yeah,
right?
and trust me, people still do. I get
That's awesome.
my phone number is probably the most shared number here on the island. I get random phone calls, so I've learned to always put my phone on do not disturb at nighttime because I will get random text messages in the middle of the night, and I'm sure people are just busy all day. Said, "Oh, I need a texter," so then I usually text them first in the morning, like, "Hey, what's going on? How can I assist?"
What is it that you end up helping with often?
So right now, well, there's a new law that came into effect that a lot of people, or people that don't have immigration status, can apply for a license. And a lot of people don't know how to even start the process. So I'm kind of being the liaison as to helping how to start the process. So that's why I'm getting a lot of phone calls on that. And I do translations. I translate the birth certificates.
You're also, aren't you a justice of the peace as well?
I am also a justice of the peace, so I get to do their wedding or their ceremony in Spanish.
How many weddings do you think you've done so far?
Oh my God, I've lost track.
Really?
Yes, I have.
That many?
Yes.
Wow.
I have lost. I'm gonna say under 100.
But close?
But close.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm sure town clerk has a record, or maybe I haven't even gone. But it's been a lot.
How did that kind of start?
Well, it kind of started when Catherine was still alive, and once in a while I would get a person that was getting married and said, "Hey, can you come and translate for us because we don't really understand or want to make sure we understand what we're doing." So then I said, "You know what? Let me apply for a justice of the peace." And at the time, there's only certain allotments of licenses that get issued. I think based on population. I'm not 100% sure. Well, at the time it got denied, so there's no open vacancies. Unfortunately, Catherine died, and I said, okay, you know what? This is my time to put it in before someone else does.
Yeah.
So I put in my application, and it got granted by the state. So I've been a justice of the peace since 2015.
Oh wow.
2018.
And do you only do have you done English and Spanish?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Oh wow, that's pretty awesome.
I like it.
Really?
Yes, I've gone to different parts of the island, and I always tell
fair.
people, especially when they seek me out, that they want to do their ceremony. And I say, you can have your ceremony pretty much anywhere that's a public space.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
That's interesting. I don't know anything about it. God, marriage is
Yeah,
a
I mean,
far-off
I've done
concept
weddings
for
at
me.
the beach.
Oh,
I
that's
mean, the
beautiful.
moment you start setting up chairs and tables, then yes, you're going to need a special permit.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if it's a private property, I'm sure you just have to seek out permission. But
Have you ever done a bilingual one where you did Spanish and English same
I
time?
have,
That's
yes,
awesome.
I have.
That's cool.
Yes, I have. I've done weddings for Portuguese couples,
Yeah.
which they speak Portuguese, but they're like, no, I want you to do it in Spanish. I'm like, okay.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And then you also you have a bunch of you're like a public notary as well.
I
and
am a
you've
public
done-
notary, so
Yeah.
people seek me out for that as well. A lot of people seek me out for paperwork to send back home to their home country, but their laws are much different. In order for paperwork to be valid, you also have to be a practicing attorney or a practicing public notary down in your country. So I said, it's not going to work. So I kind of refer them usually to the embassy, wherever they're trying to do their paperwork. I'm like, that's your safest bet.
And do you feel like, especially on Nantucket, do you feel it's, even compared to say when you first came, what year was it? 03?
I came in 04.
04 from now. Do you feel the same sense of community over time?
Well, the community has definitely gotten bigger.
Yeah.
Much, much bigger.
Really?
I used to know a lot of the Latinos in the Latino community, and now I get, I don't know.
Really?
A lot. Yeah, I may know half of them. They all seem to know me. I don't know them. And also, I'm very bad with names and faces.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And when you came out here, your family, they came from El Salvador,
My
right?
parents came from El Salvador. They
Yep.
fled the country in the 80s when the war, Civil War was happening. So my mom ended up in Boston, up in Cambridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's where I was born.
Do you feel like a ties to the El Salvadorian community out here, especially so, or more just so the Latino community as a whole?
I guess, can you repeat the question again?
Do you feel ties to the? When you first came out here, did it feel just like you had ties to the El Salvadorian community or the Latino community as a whole?
I think as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not just the Salvadorian community seeks out for my help. I get a variety from different countries. So.
That's so nice. And you've kind of like over time taken on more responsibility, especially like for example, it's like one of the more memorable moments of the annual town meetings when you spoke up for, what was it, Article 18?
I
Pretty
believe
sure,
so,
for
the affordable housing. Yes.
Yep. And did you kind of, were you already planning on speaking up then, or did
I was not. I am not a public speaker. I tend to shy away. Even I'm a school board member. I'm on the school board, and even then, I'm still more of a listen. I do ask questions, but I'm not one to just speak out.
Yeah.
So there was a few things said that really triggered, and I got offended on some of the things that were said, and I'm like, okay, I need to speak up because there's some things being said that are not true. So that's hence I felt the need to speak up, and even then I was trying to fiercely type on my phone so I could read off something.
Yep.
Because again, I'm not a public speaker, and it's very intimidating speaking at town meeting.
Yeah, it must be. I can only imagine. I mean, especially just with, like, there's some strong voices out there, and it feels like
definitely very strong voices.
Yeah. Was that your first time speaking during town meeting, or at least?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Very first time.
A very memorable one, though.
Very.
So
very.
At least it kind of, I felt like it went over pretty well.
I think it did. I think I helped a lot of people understand what it's needed for and what it's used for, especially the affordable
housing trust.
Yes.
Yep. What is your, when you decide to kind of speak up and spurred by the moment, you kind of said that you were a bit of like a voice for the community.
I was.
And especially being like, even when you ran for the school committee, weren't you the first?
I've been the first Latino, Hispanic elected ever in any town.
Which is crazy.
Government position.
In Nantucket. Yeah, it's crazy that you're the first like elected official on Nantucket. I feel like that's just, for some reason, that I couldn't believe it. Like, that's so late.
I'm breaking barriers, and I'm hoping the future generation follows. And
it's so surprising. I feel like especially because I feel like there's been somewhat of a Latino community out here for so long. It's crazy that it took this long.
Yeah.
Feels very past due. And how was it when you ran for the school committee? What was your first off, why did you want to run, and second off, what was the experience like running a campaign?
I wanted to run because I wanted to represent the demographics of the school. There's never been a Hispanic speaking person on the board, a Latino per se, and I felt the need. I have children in the school system. I was part of the school system, and now I have my daughter who's getting out of that school system, but I have little ones going into the school system. So I want to figure out ways of having more parents involved, and there's a lot of things that need to be, not per se fixed, but spoken about.
Did you feel, when you were first running, I've spoken a bit about Sarah Alger and kind of about this, like, what's the process like, just even deciding to run, like, campaign? Are you putting signs up? Are you going door to door? Like, did you get help from it, from other people, or?
Yes, I got a little bit of help. I went down to the town clerks, I got my papers, and then you pretty much kind of go around the island and collecting signatures. So I was at Stop and Shop. I would bring my papers with me.
It's crazy. Everybody says that you go to Stop and Shop, or you go to like the landfill.
Yes, anywhere where people congregate.
I feel like I'm like, somehow am I like missing out? I never notice it, or maybe I'm just so blinders on. I never know. But so Did you end up going to like a Stop and Shop?
I ended up going to Stop and Shop. I ended up going to like even the UPS store and the parking lots. I literally had my papers with me at all times on a clipboard.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
After work, I said to my coworkers, I'm like, would you sign this for me? And then I think I ended up going down to the boat and asked for signatures down there.
And what exactly is the process of asking for signatures? Is it just like, is it?
You just kind of tell them, listen, I'm running for school committee.
Yeah.
Would you be okay? Would you be, I guess, okay signing for it? I hope I get your support.
Mm-hmm. What was it that you typically wanted to run on for your school committee assignment? Like, I think I'd heard there was like trying to enact or ensure into anti-bullying.
Anti-bullying.
Yeah.
Again, a new voice for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Someone younger.
Yeah. That's the hardest part of Nantucket is finding younger people.
Yes, young people.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, the school board members we have now are very well knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, especially to hear them speak.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes at those meetings, I feel like I'm lost because they've been doing this for so long. They know exactly the procedure, the process, and how to go about stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just a parent here trying to make do and trying to figure out what's going on.
Was it overwhelming when you first got on the school committee?
At the beginning, actually, it has been overwhelming. Because not only are you attending these meetings, but there's also subcommittees that you have to make yourself available to.
What subcommittees are you?
Well, I was on the Nantucket Trust Fund, the Nantucket Education Trust, NET.
Yep.
I was part of that. We have the subcommittees for diversity. There's committees for policy. I think I was on 2. I don't remember top of my head.
Yep.
And then
did you expect all that when you first kind of?
I did not. To be honest, I didn't know what I was signing up for. I just like, sure, I'll run for school committee. I'll be a liaison. I'll show up and try to solve all the problems of the world. And then I was like, oh, there is more to what I just signed up for. But I enjoy it. It's been a great experience, and I know my term's coming up in next year in June. I think it expires, but I am going to seek re-election.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's just taken me this long to understand it, and
there was a good quote by, I forget who, maybe I don't want to guarantee it was this person, but maybe Matt Fee, who said that when you kind of like first go on a board, like the select board or any board, it's like it takes you a real full term to just realize what's going on.
Oh yeah.
You know, just to like get accustomed to what the process is and understand it before you can really start to dig deep into things or just.
Yes, totally. I will 100% agree.
Yep.
It's taken me this long to finally understand and even comprehend of what's happening. So I'm hoping the town, the people of the town will
bring you back for another term.
Bring me back for another term.
Because you had served with one of my interviewees. I think you briefly served with the person, Rocky.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, he is awesome.
Yeah. And he had nothing but nice things to say about you.
He's just another parent, but he's very well knowledgeable, being born and raised on this island. Yeah.
And what? And especially when you won for school committee, didn't you have like the most votes?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I did. So it made me feel extra special.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great
I won
confidence
by,
boost.
I don't know, hundreds of votes.
That's awesome. Being a part of the school committee was, when you first started, I'm sure it was overwhelming, but was the workload surprising as well? In terms of, is it like a lot of meetings or a lot of?
No, I think once you figure out your schedule and where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing, it kind of falls all into place.
That's good. And was that I guess that was your first time going anything, because you'd already done everything, justice of the peace, public notary, other things, but this is more like, I'd say, bigger role, especially stepping up onto a board. Yeah,
definitely.
And especially, you've kind of had this long time need for helping people and a sense of community, and like, I don't want to say, I'd say like volunteering your time and the people I've kind of put here, they've all given back to somebody in the community. And basically the question I'm asking is like, why do you feel the sense of need to give back to your community? and why is it so important to you?
I enjoy it. That satisfaction. I don't know. I enjoy it. And maybe I need to learn to say no at times, because I do get overwhelmed at times where I'm just way too busy and busy with work, kids, family. But I enjoy giving back to the community. I feel like what goes around comes around. I believe in good karma.
Seeing from like even when you first came out in '04 to now, do you feel as though the communities, do you think are you worried, or do you think that we're losing more of the sense of community or people giving back, or do you think it's still just as strong as ever?
I think it's still just as strong as ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's it, and also in that regards, when you went from, a little bit of a skip, but when you went from Steamship to working for Plus, was that a massive difference in terms of like the job, or do you feel like there's a lot of things that
total different world.
Really?
I went from transportation,
Yep.
learning about makes and models and sizes of vehicles and how many cars fit on a boat, to
I can only imagine how well you know that. I didn't even think that was like something that was like,
to working in a world where all you talk about is houses and architecture and map and parcel and locus maps. So totally different vocabulary. Yeah, it's two different worlds.
what made you want to get into Plus, or
you know what,
change of?
I was kind of feeling a little bit stagnant at the boat. I was like, I just had an epiphany. I was like, I don't want to sit here forever. I did enjoy my job, but it was the same routine over and over and over. Waking up at 4:30 to be there at 5:20.
Is it 4:30?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
man.
my shift, I had all morning shifts, which looking back, I'm like, I don't know why and how did I put up with it? But yeah, I had to be down there at 5:20. So I had to be up by 4:30. By the time I leave house, get ready. And I would just wake, especially in the wintertime, it was so hard when I'd leave my babies at home sleeping and my husband sleeping, and I'm like, I don't want to go to work, it's cold. And my husband just kind of said, why don't you look for another job? I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. And I had applied to the town a few times, and I just kind of got overlooked, or just, they didn't make association with the name or the face. And then one day, my boss, or now retired, semi-retired boss, Andrew, happened to be at the boat. And I said, listen, actually my coworker said, oh, that's Andrew, you should talk to him. That's his department that you applied for. Because I had told them I had applied for another job. And I said, oh, hi, Andrew. He's like, oh, I know you. I said, I applied to your office. He's like, you did? I said, yeah, okay, I'll look into it. So then next thing you know, within a week, I got an interview. And then after that, I think I will say it was one of my best decisions. Because of that, I got the job at Plus. And because of that, I was able to, again, word of mouth, I found someone that worked there, said, oh, I have a friend that's selling a lot, if you're interested. And then my husband and I bought a little piece of land here in Nantucket, and we got to build our house, and now I have secured housing as long as I pay that mortgage.
That's amazing,
And,
especially with how hard it is for housing.
Yes, and
gotten
I
that.
just feel like it's been like a snowball effect. Had I not spoken to Andrew that day, I probably would have not gotten the job. I wouldn't have my house. So there's been good things because of me being persistent and asking.
Before you got that lot, where were you and your family living at the time?
We were living in a rental.
Oh, that must have been nerve-wracking to some degree.
It was, and I will say I've been very fortunate with very good landlords throughout the years that have always been, they understand the need for housing, and they weren't rent gougers. They knew that you're a family trying to support yourself, so we were able to save up. As we lived in this house, we were able to save up money, which is hard to do now.
Yeah.
But
I feel like to some degree with the talks.
When we told him that we were in the process of trying to buy something, he was the first one. Well, if you need anything, if you need a loan, let me know.
Oh, that's so nice.
he says, I've known you guys, you've never been late on your rent. You've always actually tried to make this as your own. So it was very nice. And the whole process was a little bit nerve-wracking, but it all worked out at the end.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays you almost would never hear, it feels like all you hear is stories about people who, you hear all about all the negative stories, you know? You don't hear about the good.
You do.
You hear that like people get forced to get kicked out, or they can't find housing and they leave the island, or you know, X, Y, Z. You never hear. I'm sure they exist, but you just never. It's always you hear the ones of the people that are getting booted off the island.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, I've lived through the Nantucket Shuffle, from winter to summer, summer to winter, and that was hard. And as our family got bigger, I was like, we can't keep doing this. And again, we had found year-round rental, but when we found out that this lot was for sale, we put in an offer and they accepted it. I'm like, okay, it's meant to be.
That's awesome. And so then you started working at Plus, and did you kind of know before going into the job what it entailed, or you just went in blind?
I did. I had looked into it. I was like, okay, it's all about. It was administrative work, and I was also at Cape Cod Community College, also working on my information of technology degree. So it all kind of tied in together.
It really worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. It seriously worked out.
And what exactly is it that Plus does for the uninitiated?
Well, Plus does a little bit of not a little bit of everything. You got 3 different departments. You got your building, planning board, and the HDC, which is Historic District Commission. So whenever you're deciding to do anything on this island, you kind of go there first and kind of figure out what you're doing. So. And
what part do you specifically work for?
So right now, I got promoted after a year and a half working for Plus. I got promoted, so now I specifically work for the HDC department. So I do some of the intake of applications, review applications, set up meetings for the HDC commissioners to review.
Do you notice any parallels between your time? I spoke to somebody, Liz Holland, because she went from being a baker to, you know, the general manager at the Highline, and they seem not similar at all. But she kind of said it's like you can there's still like, you can pick up things from your toolkit, as she used to like to say. There's things that parallel. Do you ever notice any parallels between working at the steamship and Plus?
My customer service.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm sure that helps.
Yeah. Other than that, no, not really. I would just say my customer service. It's always come into play, and being responsive to people. Do you enjoy going from like I don't know what you call the steamship authority, more of a customer service oriented job to an administrative job? Oh yeah.
Or do you find things that you miss from either?
I don't miss the job at Steamship. I miss my ex coworkers or my coworkers. I do miss it. I mean, we still keep in touch.
Yeah, but it's always different.
I do miss the travel benefits.
Oh really?
Steamship has good perks.
What was the travel? Did you guys just get?
Well, if you work there full time, you can get discounted tickets for your car.
Oh, that's nice.
You can get free travel on the high speed. It adds up. Especially when you got a bigger family, so I do miss those perks. And then you kind of could keep track of reservations. So if you knew when you were traveling, you're like, oh, I can have my coworker book my reservation for me, and I can just keep track of it since you're there all the time.
Yep.
So that's the one thing I do miss. And again, my coworkers down there, I got nothing bad to say about them. They're just always great.
Oh, that's so nice. And even when you first started the steamship, or just even when you graduated high school, did you kind of know that Nantucket was your home, or had you not cemented your roots there yet?
I think I was just so busy with life, it didn't really click that Nantucket would be my home. I was just trying to make it to survive, and a few times I was like contemplating moving off island, just because it was at some point in my life, it was just me and my daughter. And I was like, yeah, I got no family here. Why am I here? But then work in the city was bad. There wasn't any jobs available. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to stick it out. And I'm glad I did.
And was that the main reason that kept you here, is just that you couldn't find work elsewhere?
Yeah, I think and then the fact that I would have to move in back with my mother.
Yeah, that's fair.
I love her dearly, but that's part of the reason why I ended up out here anyhow. So I just didn't want to go back. Do
you feel like Nantucket welcomed you right away? Or do you think there's a period period of time where you have to like
You know what? I don't.
become an islander to some degree?
I mean, Nantucket's always been very welcoming, but I didn't feel like I belonged here until I started. I don't even know how to answer that.
Yeah. Is it just came about?
It just came
eventually?
about, and
Yeah.
now I'm here, and now Nantucket's stuck with me.
At what point do you think you started becoming really active, like either starting with the Justice of the Peace or starting with just even helping people, transcribe things? When do you think you really became active with the Latino community out here?
I think as I got older and stopped my party phase.
That's fair.
I don't know. I kind of sat down with a friend, and they said, "What are you doing with your life?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm working and keeping my child alive. They're like, "No, but what are you doing with your life?" I was like, "Good question." And then it just kind of clicked. I was like, "Wow." I'm like, in my 20s, what am I doing with my life? And then I said, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go back to school." So that's how I started doing what I do now.
That's amazing, and I think I feel like you hear that a lot. Especially like previous people I'd interviewed, they kind of all said something like, "You got to figure out what you want to do. Like, what's going to keep you here? Like, how are you going to? You can't just be. I don't know if the word's transient or something. Just you got to find something to stick it out with out here. Like." Good examples. Rocky bounced around from job to job everywhere, and then he worked at the box for a while, and he decided to purchase the box, and now, he's been co-owner of the box for 2 decades. And it is interesting to see how everybody's come to the same conclusion as you kind of come out here, or you're born here, and you just kind of roam to some degree.
I feel, and now that I think of it, it was my husband who said to me,
Really?
"What are you doing?" Well, we started dating, and
Yep.
it was one of those things like, "What are your goals for life?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "What are your goals for life? I mean, are you always going to work at Steamship?" I'm like, "Maybe." So, and then he was the one, after our last baby, he was like, "You should go back to school." And he's like, "I'll support you. Like, if you have to stop working, I'll. I'm like, "No, we can't do that. We got to save." So, and then that's how I decided. I'm like, okay, I got to do something for myself.
And how were you guys always looking for land out here to some degree, or you just like?
You know what? It was during the pandemic. We were home for 6 weeks, and my husband is one to always work, and he was like a caged animal.
I can imagine.
And he said, "Listen, if this were my house, I'd be fixing it. I'd be doing stuff to it. I'd be painting it." I think he ended up painting one of the bedrooms, but he says, "But I can't do more because it's not my house." And I said, "Why don't we start looking?" And he's like, "You got good credit, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, fairly." He's like, "Well, I got good credit." So I was like, "Okay," and we got money saved. And then the government started sending us all the stimulus checks.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, we should go somewhere." He's like, "Nope, we're going to save all that money." So, and that's what we did. And we started looking around. We didn't see anything. And like I said, someone at work said, "Oh, I have a friend that's bought this piece of land, is subdividing it into 2 covenants and 2 market value. Are you guys interested?" I'm like, "A piece of land." I said, "Oh," I felt very overwhelmed at the time. I'm like, "Wait a minute, I work for the department that deals with this. This should be fairly easy for me."
How do you feel about what they've done with the affordable housing Nantucket and the Covenant program? And
Oh, it's the best program out there for families.
really,
Yeah. Yes.
Was that something that was around when you first came out to the island, or is this something more?
You know what? I think it's been around for a while. I don't know for sure how long. I'm sure it has been. I just was never really informed how it worked. I had always heard, like, I don't know, I guess I was just misinformed. And then once I started looking into it for myself, I was like, oh, it's not as bad as you. Because people are like, "Oh no, there's a lot of restrictions. You can't do this. You can't do that." I'm like, I don't think that's right. And then I started looking into it. I'm like, oh, this it can be done. And we have a house on Nantucket, custom built to our needs.
How do you feel the awareness is overall in the on the Covenant program, or even the lottery, the housing lottery they have. Do you think that enough people know about it who should know about it on Nantucket?
I think now, yes, because they do a great job on social media, constantly explaining how to apply, how to do this. They have had, I know for Richmond, they had open houses. I know paperwork has been translated from English to Spanish. So yeah, I think they're doing a great job as to putting it out there for people to know.
How do you feel in general, like affordable housing is going for Nantucket? Do you think we're making good strides, or there could be much more to be done?
They're trying.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm sure they're trying, and
I couldn't imagine. It's almost like a unmovable object meets like an unstoppable force. It's so difficult.
I have friends right now that are losing their housing because their landlords want rather rent to bigger corporations, or some I get it. It's, you can make good money, but also, I don't know, I feel bad for those people that are losing their houses or losing their home.
Yeah, it's especially tough. I mean, who knows? There's so many things coming out now. Who's doing it? Oh man, now I'm gonna forget. Maybe it was Zach Now, or somebody's doing giving people
I believe it's Act Now.
Stipend for doing like monthly rentals or year round.
Yeah, I think they was proposed. I'm not sure if it's.
They're trying a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
It is interesting, and especially even when you voicing your concerns in Article 18, and it passed what was $6.5 million or something more towards appropriation for the Affordable Housing Trust.
Correct.
But it almost feels like it's a constant battle. Like there's never enough. You hear more and more stories of people getting booted out.
My husband, again, because we have a brand new home with an unfinished basement, my husband has gotten countless of phone calls from people saying, "Can we live in your basement?" I'm like, "No, it's not livable. It's not ready. It's not. It's a storage room."
Yeah, I've heard horror stories of just people
yes,
like
and then
cramped,
he
like
would
sardines.
tell me about a friend that lives in this house. There's like 30 of them living in a house. 30 people. I'm like, how? It's, yeah.
I can only imagine. I've heard horror stories of people trapped, like, or just not trapped, but like 15 people in a basement type deal.
Yes, it's, unfortunately, the situation is, it's very unfortunate.
Is there anything that in your time of being on Nantucket from 2004 to now, is there anything that you appreciate or miss of how the island's changed? Or has it changed in your eyes at all?
It has changed a lot.
What's your most noticeable changes you think?
Traffic.
Traffic. I feel like everybody mentions that as traffic.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it has changed in ways where there's more people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you feel as though, especially with it's funny you've mentioned that, because so many people have mentioned, that's like the most common, that might be the #1 thing I feel like people mention during these interviews is if I ask change, it's always traffic. I can't imagine, because I've only really paid attention to the summers out here the past 4 or 5 years, and that's been like where traffic's been terrible, but I don't know what you can do to solve the traffic problem on Nantucket.
You know, they always said about limiting cars on the island, but that's, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a way, but I feel like that's kind of impossible.
Yeah, I don't know what you do to do you think has the traffic really noticeably been that bad since 2004 to now, you think?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Totally.
Really?
Yeah.
What like the worst one is by far, I don't know, it's so tough to say. I feel like I've had like
Old South Road.
Oh yeah,
that's
so
an awful one.
Yeah, Old South is insane. They should then, like, I know just recently was it Carl Yellamy who proposed the Nobody or Farm and Milestone Rotary.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like, I don't know if it's like more rotaries, or do you put a rotary at Fairgrounds and Old South?
It also doesn't help that a lot of summer people, and please don't hate me for this, don't know how to use a rotary.
Yeah, that is so true though. It really, there's a lot of people who don't understand how rotaries work.
Yes, and
I don't even know how you can teach that. Like, you just like, geez, it's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I've heard for everything from limiting cars to making there be a pay to get you have to pay you have to pay extra to bring cars on the island, even more so.
I don't know. Maybe someone smart out there will come with a solution.
Yeah, it is. that's probably been the most notable thing that people have mentioned is the traffic over time. That
I will say, like, for example, today, it's a beautiful day. That's when islanders would come into town because, you know, summer people are at the beach. But I'm just sitting here looking, and I'm like, yeah, there's no parking. There's traffic is horrendous.
What do you think? What are the things you think that makes Nantucket special and unique in your own life, your own eyes? Is there anything in particular that you just really enjoy or value being out here? Even maybe it's come over time, or maybe it's when you first came.
The community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen cases where, unfortunately, something tragic happens. The community will come together and help that person in need. I don't know. I just find Nantucket cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have the issues that some people face with just like being on the island, the things they don't like, the travel, the costs, the food to some degree? I've heard or do you not feel like you feel like you kind of block those ones out?
Well, food is very expensive.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know. I guess when you have dual income, it is noticeable, but it's manageable. And then we do have the option of buying a lot of stuff off island and having it shipped here.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Costco is a big friend of mine, and Target.
Yeah. It's like I feel like it must outweigh the pros and cons of having or do you not take a car off island? Do you like bring it?
Oh my God! When I go off island, my car is usually packed.
Really?
Packed.
Oh.
Packed.
What's it? One thing I forgot to mention is, what does your husband do for work?
He's a painter. He's a Finnish painter.
Oh, has he done that since he came out in 04?
Yes, and now he's dabbling into construction.
Oh, that's
yeah.
exciting.
So again, us building a house here on Nantucket, he kind of had to learn.
Yeah.
Because you can't contract everybody, because otherwise you do run out of money at some point. So we were kind of forced to do a lot of the stuff in our house is DIY.
Yeah. Did you guys start from scratch at your house and build up?
No, we ended up doing a modular home.
Okay.
So, but I mean, they kind of a Lego house.
Yeah,
but
I've heard stories about the modular homes. I don't know if you were sure you were there for it when you worked at Steamship. Apparently, it's like incredibly difficult to get them on the island.
Oh yeah, you gotta book. That's something I learned the hard way. You gotta
Really?
book those like 6 months in advance.
Really?
Yeah. Well, maybe not.
But that's like the level of.
Yeah, you have to book it, and then in the summertime you can't move a house like between June and September, because of again traffic.
Yeah.
I'm trying my and you have to get a barge reservation.
Really?
You have to get your over the road permits and potentially a police detail. I mean, there's so many moving parts, and you hope that the weather cooperates.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can go on and on.
That must have been incredibly
It
stressful.
was super stressful when we did our house, but it's been worth it. But yes, we did a modular, and we think, again, the community. I have friends that came over, helped us put our house together.
Is it really just like Lego pieces where they connect right
Yeah,
together?
they do. They connect, and then you get a plumber that connects all your plumbing.
Wow.
You get an electrician that connects all your electricity, because it is kind of pre-wired, but not fully.
You just have to
Yeah.
plug the end pieces in.
So then, so yeah, my husband had to do a lot of the sheet rock drywall, because had we hired someone, it would have cost a fortune. We tried doing tiling, and that didn't work out very well. We lost so many pieces of tiles because we didn't know how to cut them properly. But again, a friend helped us, and the community came around.
Yeah, it seems like you really had the community help you.
Oh
with a
yeah,
lot of
it literally took a lot of people to help us.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful. I will always be grateful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially just having that community there, and especially, I mean, in some instances, obviously, it's like, I know I spoke with Rocky, and he talks about his Cape Verde community, but they've kind of, sadly, the Cape Verde community has kind of fallen off in times. You know, back in when he grew up, it was much more prevalent. Now it's not nearly as prevalent. They've kind of just, everybody's drifted away to some degree, and it is, how often do you see it? I think a good example is, I remember Rocky one time said he was on the ferry out of here, and he had like 6 of his classmates were there coming to visit the island. They graduated from Nantucket High School because their family, they either left the island or their families sold their homes. Do you notice, even though the Latino community gets larger, do you notice friends of yours leaving at and being replaced with just random, not random faces, but just different people?
Yeah, I have. And a lot of friends of ours have left because of housing. Because they haven't been able to buy anything here on the island, but they end up buying on the Cape, which is easier. There's more options.
Do you find, I know you've had amazing landlords through your time, but has it ever crossed your minds to just be like, why don't we just go off island where everything's easier?
Oh yeah. Every summer.
Really?
Yes. Every summer. I'll bring my kids off island. I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if we lived off island? We didn't have to rush back to a boat. Because whenever we travel, you're always on a time constraint. You gotta be like, okay, we gotta rush this, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, we gotta return the car, we gotta run to the boat.
What do you think stops you from just pulling that trigger? Or do you think it's just general frustration?
Well, I've become accustomed here to the island. I love my lifestyle here. Part of it is work. And now I feel like I'm really not going anywhere since I have a place to live. And then it's a great place for children to grow. Granted, there's not much to do, but there is. I mean, people say, oh, there's nothing for kids to do. Trust me, there's plenty for them to do. You just, as a parent, you just have to
find stuff
for them.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've heard people say that there's just nothing for kids to do, but it feels like there's more and more, luckily it feels like there's more and more programs that pop up every...
There is.
And there's just seems like there's a constant, if you can find it, there's things.
Yeah, and then I feel as a parent, not everything is work. You got to make time for them too. I mean, this is my opinion. I'll give you an example. Tomorrow I'm taking tomorrow off. I'm using a vacation day. I'm gonna bring them to the Cape. Hopefully we're gonna go to Water Whiz. And just kind of putter around the Cape and something different.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they know the island incredibly well by now.
You know what? I don't. I do know. I do and I don't. There's still some parts of the island that I haven't explored.
Really?
Yeah. Like I see my friend's Instagram. She'll be at this beautiful pond. I'm like, where is that? And then I'm like, where is that? She's like, she'll tell me where it is. I'm like, oh my God, I'd never think about going to those places.
Yeah. And it's just like you get stuck in like the lifestyle routine. And
you do. Unfortunately, we all are culprits of falling into that same routine over and over and over. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
As we're getting a little closer towards the end, and so what I like to do is I give people I'll do a little quick fire question round.
Sure.
And then I'll ask you a super easy question about the future of Nantucket and just
Okay.
how to fix it. It's so simple, luckily. Everybody can do it. It's incredibly easy.
Okay.
It's a quick fix, really. All right, so for the quick fire questions, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
To be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not.
That's a good one. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Any historical... that's a good... I don't know.
I know, you'd skip.
Yeah, I'll skip that one. I don't know.
What's one thing you haven't accomplished yet on your bucket list?
One thing I haven't accomplished yet. Become rich.
That's a good one. Perfect. Let me know when you do. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of your favorite spot on the island?
My wedding day.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It's out at Sconset.
Oh.
Yeah, the lighthouse. I love that place.
Yeah, I know. I'm worried. I wonder if they're going to move it again. I've heard.
I hope they do.
Yeah, I know. So it doesn't fall into the water. That'd be nice. Or just figure out another way to get there with Baxter Road slowly crumbling. North Shore or South Shore beaches?
The North Shore. I'm not a strong...
God, everybody says North Shore. I think I've gotten all North Shore answers. It's pretty impressive. Nobody likes the South Shore.
Well, the South Shore, you have to be a strong swimmer.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Or, you gotta know how to swim.
Yeah.
I barely know how to float. And that's the one thing I always say, do as I say, don't do as I...
Oh yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Yes, because I always tell parents, like, put your kids to swim classes, which my little ones are going to swim classes.
That's awesome.
I signed them up for 2 weeks. Actually, they did a few weeks in the beginning of the summer, and I'm a few weeks now. And I'm like, because I want them to learn how to swim. I don't know how to swim. God forbid something were to happen to me, or we were at the beach. I mean, I can float, I can doggy paddle, but that's about it.
Yep. Oh man, that's insane. What's it? What's your favorite way to unwind and relax after a long day? What's your go-to?
Go to the beach.
Really nice. What's the beach of choice?
Pocomo.
Pocomo, it's a good one. It's a lesser. I feel like it's a somewhat lesser picked one.
It's a little bit far, but it's always so calm out there, and I like seeing the kite surfers.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yep. No, it's so interesting. Something I've always wanted to do. I just don't think I'm ever gonna. I feel like I see like how the level of effort. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna take a long time for me to get there. All right. The last question, super easy. Just a real quick fix. What do you envision for the future of Nantucket, considering its rich history, unique character, and the evolving challenge it faces? What are your thoughts on how the island can preserve its cultural heritage while embracing progress and addressing the needs of both residents and visitors?
That's not an easy question.
Super easy. It should be just like a quick fix.
I don't know. I think if they were to fix the housing crisis, that would help a lot for the community, because it's not just this Latino Hispanic community that's suffering. It's anybody or everybody. I don't. I don't know. I don't even know how to answer that one.
I know it's not it's an impossible question. Hence why I asked.
Yeah.
It is a tough one, and I've heard everything under the sun, but I do frequently hear it's housing.
Yeah,
but it's
a lot of it is housing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it is housing.
Would you say you're optimistic or pessimistic for the future?
I'm optimistic. I'm hoping. Right. I mean, there's Wiggles Way that's going to open up new houses or new housing situations. There's Surfside Crossing. I know it's like, oh my God, it's
contentious.
Yeah, it's very contentious, but I feel like that's going to open so many opportunities for so many people. I mean,
is there another one? I forget. What's the one off Old South? Or is that not affordable housing?
Richmond.
Yeah.
That's helped a lot of families.
Yep.
That's another big one. And I know people were very skeptical at first, but that one has helped a lot of people. I have a handful of my friends that were able to become homeowners because of Richmond.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's a nice little community. I mean, I was talking to someone earlier today because they called about potentially putting a fence up somewhere. And I said, she's like, do you know the area? I said, I actually know the area very well. And I can tell you, it all used to be a junkyard back there. And now when you drive back there, you see houses.
Yep.
You see kids playing outside. So it's great. And I'm like, I kick myself. I'm like, I should have taken pictures of what it was before. I'm sure there's the aerials, like
of course,
that you can see from when it was literally a junkyard to now seeing all these houses.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're the. I think I don't know. Last week's interview, I don't know if it was an optimism or pet, but I think this is a straight flush of just optimism. I've yet to get one person to say like, the island's doomed, close it down. Like I've never had that yet, thank God.
Oh.
But yeah, that's a good flow of optimism from all the interviews.
You know what? I am a very optimistic person. I don't know. I always feel you can't dwell on things. I will say there used to be a coworker of mine, and he would always say sayings, and he said, I can't remember how he worded it, but he says, half of the things you worry are out of your control. I can't even remember how he would word it, but pretty much saying, just let go with the flow. Either it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. And that just really stuck now that I think of it. I'll have to think of what was his saying, but
it's a perfect explanation of those.
Yeah.
Things that are out of your control you can't worry about.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Perfect. That's fine. Nobody else has added. Nobody else has randomly came up with one. I've always wondered if somebody would add something crazy, but well, thank you so much again.
Well, thank you for having me.